Marco, if we can start by you introducing yourself and your company.
Great. Thank you very much, Angelos. Yeah. So Marco Herbst, I am CEO of Evercam, and we're putting cameras on construction sites. But our approach is that they are cameras in order to help the contractor and help the construction process.
So how did this, I'm really curious. So it's a live camera product. Why did you choose to focus on construction? I remember there's a pretty cool story there, starting from Germany, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it was sort of a happy accident that we ended up here. And it largely came from trying a lot of dead ends first. As it happens, the very first camera that I did set up was looking at this great construction project that was going on outside my window in my apartment in Berlin. And when I realized what an interesting technology it was and started thinking about use cases for cameras, connection to the cloud, and so on, I started building initially a security type product. That's where cameras often leads you, or it's the first place that people often think of when they think of cameras. And what I realized is the security world is quite well served by the existing products and the existing technologies. They might not be the fanciest, but they do the job. Then I was pulled along with my business partner, with whom I've worked on previous projects. What we were always very interested in was sort of cameras for good, cameras as a communications tool, cameras as a way of sharing information, opening things up, transparency. And we built a platform that would work really with any other piece of software that would allow you to pull in images and share images, record images, and so on. And in the process of building that business, we found a client in the construction sector, and then we knew straight away that of all the use cases we'd looked at, of all the different scenarios of supply chains and traceability and so on, we'd worked in the food industry, we'd worked in manufacturing. Immediately in the construction, we saw this was really big. There was a real opportunity to have big dollar impact on what was happening on the site to save them a lot of money. And actually, it came from an important moment was seeing how angry the customer was when the camera stopped working, which made us know that we had something, because finally somebody cared. So pretty quickly we shelved everything else we were doing, and we went and got ourselves the Safe Pass, which is the cert you need to be able to go on site. Vinny got himself a yellow hat, traded in his BMW for an SUV, and wow. We started taking the construction industry really seriously and haven't looked back, really enjoying it.
And you've previously been pretty successful in the tech industry with your previous company. I think it's a blessing to have people like you join the construction tech market. But Marco, I'm curious. Do you feel that the use of cameras in general, be it cameras in the field or live cameras in construction, is underutilized right now?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and that's the agenda we're on. And again, I think it's a happy accident, and it really comes down, like so many things, to timing. So if you go backwards beyond sort of like 4 or 5 years ago when we started getting into this, number one, the technology wasn't really there. Like broadband and cameras themselves were all sort of like just a bit crummy. But also, I think we're seeing a huge cultural shift in construction. Construction was always famous for a sort of a need-to-know style communications, that there was a certain amount of sort of like contentiousness and defensiveness built in, argumentativeness built into the process of constructing between the client and developer and contractor and subcontractors. And I think what we're seeing now is a certain class of contractor who's pulling ahead, that your real professionalization of the industry, where they're learning from other sectors, where collaboration has become the norm. A certain level of openness and transparency, sharing of information has become the norm. And that is now I think much more than it ever was before, becoming the mantra of good, professional, safe construction.
I love that.
And cameras obviously is part of that, because like for us this is an information sharing tool. It's a tool to not win arguments, but to avoid having the argument in the first place. You know, if we all know exactly what happened, there's 50% of your conversations already that you don't have to have. So yeah, I would put a lot of the credit down to timing more so than anything else, that the industry shift is towards this collaborative approach, and cameras are just a very nice tool for giving people access to see what's going on.
Is there something happening in the camera technology itself that's enabling more use of cameras on sites where they previously not able to be used?
Absolutely, definitely. So the first cameras that went onto construction sites, obviously the security cameras around the perimeter, but leave them aside for a second. The cameras that were on sites maybe 10 years ago, if there were any, might have been those photography type cameras, DSLR cameras, taking beautiful high resolution photographs. So you have this record after the event, or you can make a nice video after the event. What was different when we came along is it was just the beginning of your high resolution IP camera. So most people's image of CCTV is those kind of grainy pictures where you can't really see what's happening. The truth is, most modern cameras that you buy now are really, really high quality already. And then we would be using the very best of them. So you're talking like beyond cinema quality cameras. It's sort of 12 megapixel plus type camera, which is also doing live streaming video and full video recording. So you're not stuck with this one picture every hour or one picture every half an hour. It's full live 12 megapixel 4K plus video. Everything's being recorded. And we've also got the broadband that can handle that. So this is even just 4G. You don't even need to wait for 5G. It works today really well, really reliably, really affordably.
And also allows you for the super zoom and X-ray features that you have. I love those. I think they're really cool. Yeah. So you said something that I found really interesting, that customers pretty much freak out when the cameras don't work and they can't see their projects. So I'm assuming your customers are actually using the tool. I mean, they enter on a weekly, daily basis, and it just sort of becomes one of those things that you can't imagine your life without anymore. Do you feel that it's starting to go in that direction? And I'm asking this because with a lot of the contractors, a lot of the customers that we have in the construction industry, introducing technology, even today, introducing technology, any type of technology on their projects is a first.
Yeah, I'm not a big one for hyperbole and big statements, but I can say now in my most bored voice ever, every construction site in the world is going to have a camera on it. It doesn't matter whether you're getting your kitchen sink repaired. The guy's going to walk in, mobile phone, he'll take a couple of pictures before he starts working. He'll do the work and he'll take a couple of pictures, he'll clean up behind him and he'll leave. Right? Yeah. That's getting your kitchen sink repaired. Now, you're building a giga project out in Saudi Arabia. It's the same story. The cameras go in first, and then the excavators go in, and then the rest of the team goes in. And it will be unusual. In fact, I just think it won't happen that there any significant construction project gets done without a camera. It reminds me a little bit of that madman Bill Gates when he used to say a computer in every home, and it turns out he was underestimating it. Like how many computers do you have at home? It's like, I don't even know how many. And I think that's where we are with cameras and construction. It's just that ship has sailed. And now it's really just about working out which types of cameras, because obviously there's more than what we do. We tend to do these fixed position type cameras, but there's the drone technology is fantastic. That's basically just a camera on wings. The 360 cameras for internal photography, it's brilliant. I think SEKTOR is very involved with all of these. So yes, all the different types of cameras, and then the software that makes the camera special. So it's obviously it's not just a case of taking the picture, but the opportunities that AI brings to sort of understand the picture, to relate that to the model, so you know where you are in terms of progress tracking. The roadmap is really long, and I think that's why there's so much attention and energy going into this at the moment, where companies are realizing, fine, like the camera is just the start of the journey, but turning that into useful information is what's great.
Marco, are we talking here about rudimentary AI, or are we talking about real, true AI that's transformative in a sense, or even evolutionary, based on what we're doing today?
Yeah, so good question, because AI means an awful lot of things to an awful lot of different people, usually
And
depending.
we're very practical in construction too. So
yeah, depending on whether you're buying or selling, generally. The three words that go into a lot of kind of AI related pitch decks, shall we say, are this: capture, understand, predict. Okay. And the capture thing is fine. That's kind of where the cameras come in. So we're capturing all this information. Step two is just understanding it. So that's sort of really where Evercam is today. Right? I can tell you that it's an excavator. I can tell you that it's a truck. It's a concrete delivery. I can tell you that the truck is full or empty. We might attach that to a license plate reader. Where I think we all know it's going, and there's no real mystery there to how this is going to fall into place. It isn't quite there yet as an industry, is the predict bit. So it's one thing telling you that you had 23 trucks there yesterday. Right? Fine, I might save you a bit of time having an argument with a subcontractor. But when I can start to predict where on the construction site we have risk, health and safety risks, because we've seen patterns like that before. We've seen these sort of behaviors before, where we can start having this predictive impact on schedules slipping.
Yeah.
And I always hesitate using the kind of risk management side, but this opportunity management side. So to see where there are savings to be had, to see where, because of possibly weather data, that there's an opportunity to get something done faster or sooner than it might otherwise be done. So the predict side is the holy grail, and a little bit like a camera on every construction site, it's now obvious that that's what's coming down the track. The industry has to kind of keep up a little bit. And another one maybe worth mentioning is the progress tracking. Like, that's an obvious no-brainer. It's just this communication from client, developer to the contractor. Where are we in the project? Are we on track? It's a really simple question. And there's so much of our industry, the tech part of the industry, is all built around that question. Obviously, the camera gives you a photograph of what's going on, but can we really accurately relate that to the project schedule and the risks?
Yeah.
There's companies selling that, and it's part of what Evercam does, but I would say not really. Is it going to be doing that in a few years' time? Absolutely, 100%. Together with the other sensors, not us on our own. That's another really important factor. Like our cameras, there's certain things we're good at, and then certain things where just the other sensors are better.
Yeah.
And a general rule that we've established in the sort of 10 or so years that I've been involved in cameras is: someone comes to you with a problem, someone comes with an idea. Question number one: is there any other way of solving this problem except a camera? Because if there is, use the Bluetooth beacon. Right? Have a guy at the gate looking for paper signatures, whatever it might be. If there's a an alternative tool other than a camera, it's probably the right one.
Yeah.
But some things are best done by cameras, and that's when we get active.
I love the discussion on progress tracking, because at times it feels we're driving these massive ships around the world, and we just don't know what's in front of us. We don't know at any moment what's happening. A captain of a ship will have all of their indicators and radars and look aheads and so on and so forth. And they know what's coming. And in construction, we just don't. And I feel it's making us more reactive as an industry instead of proactive, and more prone to risks, whether that be external factors, such as the economy going up and down, or internal risks that we're facing. And I feel that really nothing can provide you a clearer picture than than the word itself, than the cameras and photos, visual imagery, and nothing really can replace that. And it's fast too.
Yeah. I mean, here's a metaphor. I think, as you said, I sort of came more from the tech industry than from construction. I've been trying to catch up in construction, really. But all the buzz in the software development world for the last 15, 20 years is this concept of agile. Right? And the big shift in agile was the emphasis used to be plan, 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 and then hand it over to the software developers and build, 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 build. Right? And somehow or other, all these projects were going wrong. Really expensive, kind of well-funded software projects were all ending up in the rubbish bin. And the solution to that has turned out to be plan, build, plan, build, plan, build, plan, build, plan, build, where there's a really tight feedback loop between the next little thing that you build and what the customer thinks of it, or to test it. Does it work? Right. So you're constantly building, testing, deploying, and there's a feedback loop. And when I think about where products like us fit in the world, I think it's those methods being applied to construction projects. So when things deviate, and they do, there's so many variables. Like you said, you're basically driving this tanker in the dark, right? You just don't know what's coming tomorrow, which piece of your supply chain is going to fall apart, which contractor is going to let you down, what the weather is going to do. It's just the variables of life. But if there's a quick feedback loop between going off plan, realizing, and reacting, everybody wins. So if you think of the tools that are there for planning, right, our 4D scheduling tools, our Navisworks and our Synchros, our BIM 360s, Procore, etc., they're drawing out, listen, this is what is supposed to happen. This is our digital twin in advance. And then the reality capture teams, so companies like SEKTOR, companies like ourselves, we're feeding back into that. This is where we are. This is where we are. Right? So before those deviations, those deltas become dangerous and expensive, somebody has the ability to correct the situation and react and respond. And I think that's because we can't control the variables. Like the ship is always going to be sailing in the dark, but at least now we've got a bit of a torch.
We know where it is.
Yeah.
At least we know where it is. Marco, what has your experience been when you first speak to a new customer? What are the biggest challenges that you feel the industry is facing in terms of adapting technologies, whether that's Evercam or other solutions that you see? Because as you've said, one solution helps the other, and so on and so forth. So I'm sure you have an eye out for them as well.
Yeah. Okay. There's probably a couple of legs to that question. One that occurs to me is a camera is a little bit like a pencil. So it just depends who you are, what you want to use it for. So the camera means a different thing to the health and safety person than it does to the sustainability, than it does to the quantity surveyor or to the client developer subcontractor. And we bring a lot of value to the table, and we're trying to bring the most we can. So the more people that use us, the better. But ultimately, somebody's picking up the bill. A controversial decision we made early on was to focus our time and energy on the contractor, not the client or developer. So usually the client and the developer that's where the money decider is, the pocket. But we knew that we were going to have the biggest impact with the contractor. What we wanted to do was deliver construction projects on time, on budget. Right. So who really wins there? In the immediate term, it's that contractor. For their point of view, the first time they look at what we're offering, it's just an extra optional cost. It's why do I want to put this? This is just coming straight out of my top line margin. And it's taken us some time to I think really clearly make our point to the financial controller of the main contractor, of the general contractor, that their 20,000 euros spent on a camera system like Evercam has a return of 10 times that on project after project after project. So that's a thing, was we were selling, I think, to the non-obvious customer, but the customer where really there was the biggest opportunity to actually deliver value. What we try and encourage is that the developer and the client share in that value. So we try to encourage the contractor, look, use this as a communications tool, grow and cement your relationship with your customer using the camera. That is now the norm, but again, it wasn't obvious. The culture was often different, that they would want a very tight control on the communication flow there. And
Yeah.
there's elements of Evercam that allow you to deal with that, but the basic principle had to be established.
Yeah.
So I think there's two things: all the different personas, like explaining it to them, and probably only one of them is a bill payer decider. But if there's one who we really wanted to impress, it was always the financial controller. We wanted Evercam to be a money decision, not a vanity decision or a kind of a keep up with the Joneses decision, but an actual cold that a bookkeeper would look at our product and say, that's good for my bottom line. That's success for us from a product management point of view. And then getting that message out appropriately to the various different stakeholders is hard as well.
Yeah. Have you seen a shift in transparency? I mean, you touched upon it once or twice, and I think it's very important. Ultimately, each party needs to know the truth about their project, and one way or another, if you want to get project information, even if the contractor doesn't have a camera, the owner can go and install a camera, or one of the consultants can walk around with the camera. There's ways to capture your site if you want your site to be captured. Are you seeing this shift? Are you seeing a shift in transparency, first of all? And if you are, is it out of goodwill? Is it something that people, you feel, wanted to do for a while, there just wasn't a way, or is it just because they have to?
Yeah. So you summarized it quite well there. It's a combination of pragmatism and self-interest. But I think you could look again at the computer world. There were those who were just really into computers and excited about Lotus 1, 2, 3 and Symfony and those early spreadsheet tools and those little simple pie chart graphs. And then there were those who just had to get dragged along and had to adopt computers if you wanted to be serious about doing any element of a modern job. And so it's that kind of thing. It's happening whether you like it or not, and it doesn't matter whether you're an early adopter or a kind of a laggard. This camera's coming. The great benefit of opting for implementing the system is you get to choose which system goes in, and you get to control the data feed. So there's definitely an advantage to being the enthusiast. But I think overall, it's about the professionalization of the industry. And like every other industry that has gone before it, tech has come in and opened it up, and the people who are riding that wave are the ones that win.
Yeah. So let's take cameras aside. What are, in your opinion, some of the biggest opportunities out there in tech? Or if I could put it another way, what's something that you wish there was more of that could even help your cause? Because I think your cause is pretty great. You want the industry to be more professional, more transparent, to to collaborate much more between design and build. I love that. Coming from the industry, I see a big use case into that. So, what's something that's you wish was out there, or you wish there was more of?
Yeah, interesting. I think what my answer to that, when I think of the people that I consider to be great in construction, the real heroes, the people who I would want on my projects, I think they are not technology enthusiasts by and large. I think they're technology skeptics by and large. and often from experience, not through ignorance, but they've tried out some of these ideas over the last 20 years, and they've been disappointed, and they've said, look, technology isn't going to solve my problems. Good people working hard, communicating well, working as a team, they're going to solve my problems, and they're going to get this delivered. And I think that they've been right to do that. What I think has changed is technology is better now, and it's time for them to give technology a second chance. Yeah, I mean, I think that I've said it there probably in the most succinct way.
Yeah.
But I've often felt like an apologist for technology, because I am a technology enthusiast. I've been using it since childhood, and I love it for technology's sake. And even if it wasn't that good, I'd still love it. And the difference is now it actually works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Just look at the first
yeah.
iPhone. Did it have everything? No.
Yeah, it's exactly that. The pioneers often get burnt, and I think some of the wise, best people in construction have tried technologies a little too early. Also, the technology industry has grown up. The mantra of the technology industry has largely been, sell the future, and then you'll get there eventually. But in construction, it's completely different. You've only got one project, and the only thing you have to deliver is whatever you said you were going to deliver. Which is one of the reasons I really like working in it. But it is you have to readjust, because in the tech world, you can sell something that probably will work in the future, and there's a sort of an understanding that you'll fiddle around a bit, fix a few things that don't work, get rid of a few bugs, and it'll work eventually. That's not okay on a 12-month or an 18-month construction project. It's not okay if it starts working on month 19. So tech, I think, has learned to be better, to maybe promise less, more realistically, and to know that it has to work on day one. So I would invite those skeptics to give it another shot, and they're often the best people in construction. And and tech itself also to recognize that this industry is different. It's not okay to sell the future, sell what works today. If you're dealing with a real project manager, if you're dealing with the head of innovation in some department, and there's an understanding that you're both going out to try something new, that's okay. That's different. But on a real project, there's a start date, there's an end date, and you're basically signing an unwritten contract to help that person get that delivered.
What's an example of a technology that's sort of selling you the future when you start to use it, and a technology that gives you value today, starting day one?
Yeah. Printers are always my favorite analogy. We all know how a printer should work, and like 50% of the time you press the button and nothing happens. And cameras are disturbingly like printers. Like, I think one of the things that we did really well is we didn't ignore the fact that there was a camera. It's very tempting as a software person to focus on the fun bit, the software, and ignore the fact that there has to be actually a working camera connected to the internet with electricity 24/7. First thing we did is we got really good at that. And then the second thing we did is build a software on top of that. But if I was to think of other examples, we sort of touched on them earlier in the conversation, that the progress tracking, it's really simple. It's what everyone wants. It's an easy sell. But I would say that don't undersell. Look, here's a picture of what's going on. I can't really tell you whether you have a 14% risk of a deviation from schedule. Right? But what I can do is I can show you in head office with your experience. Here's a photograph of your site right now. What do you think? Does that look like a well-run site? Does it look like a site where things are on schedule? Does it look like a site that's well stocked? And one of the things that accidentally we've seen Evercam does is it enables the wise old men of construction, if I can use that expression, to support and help the people on site. So the project manager is there with his face in the fire, so to speak, dealing with the problems. But what the camera is a support tool for him. So he can lean on the people who are off-site to bring knowledge and support just by looking at the picture. Sorry, that's where I was going with that question.
Yeah.
The picture is very, very powerful. The AI, the machining, the data we can extrapolate from that, that's cool. Sometimes what it does, it actually just helps you find the right picture. But just the picture itself, just the very basic piece, is the strong today value. I mean,
That's really interesting. It's really interesting because often, especially as we have enthusiasts turn into rock stars now in construction, what we're often seeing is maybe sometimes too much excitement. Are you able to tell me, to predict when my project is going to finish, for instance? So
yeah,
I'd be curious to see, companies that, bank on that and try to sell that to customers, how far they will go versus companies that are, more pragmatic, more realistic, and how that will do. I'm curious, do you feel that, say, Katerra's bankruptcy had anything to do with future selling?
Yeah, like what a great company, what a great promise. And you can see how they got into that they started to solve one problem, and then they realized it was connected to another part of the problem. They said, well, screw it, we'll just solve that problem as well. And then there was another part, well, screw it, we'll just solve that problem as well. I mean, so much respect for the size of vision and appetite of those guys. Yeah, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think that's the risk you take. And ultimately, again, it kind of comes down to cash in the bank in so many cases.
Yeah.
What do I say? Were they too much selling the future? Yeah, it's a timing thing. They could just as easily be the Amazon, the SpaceX, the Tesla of the construction industry. Apparently, they're not going to be that, but they could just as easily be, and I would like to celebrate them. They're the loser in this story, but I would like to celebrate them as much as the winners. Sometimes it is just luck that separates the winners and the losers. While I was talking to you, I was trying to remember the right vocabulary for what we were talking about. Sometimes in technology, you've seen that graph which has the trough of disillusionment. So people start off with this great enthusiasm. There's a new technology, and it's going to change everything. The peak of inflated expectations, immediately followed by, oh my God, nothing works. This is all terrible. Nothing good will ever happen. And out of that comes an actual real benefit, the slope of enlightenment, the plateau of productivity. My opinion is that we're on that slope of enlightenment now, that these things are working, and sometimes in a very mundane, ordinary way, but they're working.
Yeah. So in the live cam business, do you feel that it's also driven sometimes by one or two key players that just see that, or is it a little bit different where the entire team gets excited about it? What's sort of the take there? Is there a leader when it comes to that?
Do you mean in terms of buyers who are buying it from us, or like industry players like other Evercams?
I'd say buyers and users, right? Because you need both. I've been in plenty of projects, and it's always a personal disappointment to me when the buyer says, "Oh, I'll buy it for my team," and inside me, I just want to say, "No, but you should be involved. You're here. It's for you too." But I'm just curious to get your perspective from the live cam business, let's say.
Yes. So we would have champions who are project managers, and they move from project to project, and they require Evercam on the projects that they work in, wherever they're able to make that decision. And that's fine and lovely. We would have champions who are in the sort of the BIM IT world. where they're enjoying the benefits that they're getting of Evercam. The investments they've made in BIM and in planning are now, they sort of feel that they're reaping the rewards of it, and they often have their hands on some budget levers. So, you know, that's a real factor. Do you have the ability to buy it? Our favorite champions, like I say, are the quantity surveyors, the commercial managers, the contracts managers, those people who've really seen what we want them to see, which is this is a cold, hard financial decision. If we spend this money, we bring home 10 times that amount. There are fewer of them, but they're the ones that we really cherish internally.
So you've worked in tech, now you're working in construction tech. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of leaders, good and bad. What are the top qualities that you feel a good leader should have that's driving a successful tech implementation?
Yeah, it's something that we talk about internally. Is that there are the types of experts who make you feel stupid, and there are the types of experts who make you feel clever. And we very much want to be the type of expert that makes you feel clever. The person who says, look, all this stuff that I'm very good at, it's really not that clever. You know, you just, there's a certain number of things, you have to make them work. So we're pretty good at getting a camera working on a construction site, but it's not a magic camera. It's just a camera. It's just connected to the internet. We're using the right type of aerial, the right type of installations, and so on. The software that we do, yes, it's got AI. Yes, you can integrate your BIM models and stuff. But kind of like I was saying, you know, the largest part of the value, one of the most important features we have is this weekly email, where on a Sunday afternoon when the site's shut down, takes a high resolution photograph and it emails it to a bunch of people. It might be the people who are going to be using that project later, or people who are going to be having their Monday morning meeting about that project. That is low tech by any standards, but it's easy to explain that to someone. It's not rocket science in any way, but it's very real, and it's the core of our business. If we didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to work on the AI stuff that I'm working on, because basically that one JPEG every 7 days by email is as often as not what the customer is buying, and it allows me to work on what I believe the customer will be buying in a year or two.
Yeah, very good.